Welcome, everybody, to our season 2, episode 1 of our Tableau Live by Boulder Insight. We're so glad you all could join us. This is where we have real users ask real questions that we solve here live on the spot. So this is a free offering that we do every month. So we're so glad that you could join us. We have several people here on the call. We also have people who have not been able to join the call but have put in questions in advance that we'll be answering today. For those of you that are live here with us for Tableau Live, we do prioritize your questions. So if you haven't submitted a question in advance and you do have one, please feel free to go to the chat and put your question in there. We'll be sure to prioritize that as well today. So I'm Heather Datillo. I'll be your co-facilitator and host. I'm the EVP of Operations here at Boulder Insight, and I'm a certified Tableau trainer and consultant. And joining me today is my other co-facilitator, our founder, our visionary. We lovingly call him our GGTK, which stands for Good Guy to Know. And he just is. I have Chris Cox joining me
Crocs,
as well today.
Crocs is good.
That both will work either way, right? And so our agenda and the way that this works for those of you who are new joining us with Tableau Live, we start with our welcome, then we move into the submitted questions and topics, and then we answer the open Q&A session questions that you all have for those of you that are live. If we see that the submitted questions are taking longer and we're not prioritizing the open Q&A, we'll sometimes hop around and be sure to get your questions answered since you're here live with us. And then we do a quick wrap up. So this is a way for you to carry your questions for a month that you have. You can submit them to us in the registration form. And I'll also show you another way to submit questions to us as well at the end if you have any. But during this call, when you're with us, please feel free to go to the chat and submit the questions that you have there. So I do see some of the folks that submitted here joining us live. So that's fantastic. We're so thrilled to have you here. And we're excited to be kicking off a new year together to try to really invest in growing your skills in Tableau, in data visualization and data analytics, business intelligence, all of the ways that we can support you so you can see and understand your data better and that we can help you get there faster. So the submitted questions that we received, we're going to go ahead and just jump in and start with them. One of the first questions we had, and Chris, I don't see that Maremi is here yet today, but so we can make some assumptions about what she meant by the multiple calculations in the same field. But here's the question that came up. Maremi is one of our community members from Boulder Insight. She's based out of Colorado Springs, and she had a question around using multiple calculations in the same calculation field. So Chris, I'm going to hand this off to you. I know we talked about some best practices. I do have some information I can pull up as well around the naming conventions that we use if you need me to pull that up at any point as well. So I do have that with me too, but let's go ahead and dive into that first question. I'll stop sharing my screen and let you share yours.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, this was like the multiple calcs in one. I'll just share the screen. So yeah, so a lot of times when we're writing these like calcs, and this is here you'll just kind of see how we name things. All of our calculations we try to do with this like a numbering convention at the beginning. So like I'll do this like a 001. The great thing about this is that if I want to see all my calcs, I can just type that into the search, and that kind of brings them all up. And then what you'll see is it's often that we do. Actually, I'll put that back up so I can get to it faster. It's like this one here. So the first number is the number of the calc, and then the last two numbers are actually calcs that are actually side of it. So like, for example, if I wanted to write this profit ratio calculation, then I might do a sum of profit first. I'll show you all of these. We'll just do it as labels for now, and then some profit and some of sales. Okay, so here's my different pieces that I have, and then so the great thing about this is that's obviously an easy one. I probably could have done this one inside of the calculation, but the great thing about doing it, and these are pretty simple ones, but just sum of sales and sum of profit, and then the profit ratio is obviously just a the profit divided by sales. So this is a pretty simple one, but doing it like this kind of makes it easy to really check your math. So if I know that I have 14.66% is my answer, well, if I don't have these two numbers actually available, then it's hard for me to go and actually check it. So I kind of like to build every calculation separately. Then we actually combine them inside of one kind of overall calculation. And then this way also too, if I decided, hey, I need to make a change to 004, and I just pull up 004, then I'm going to see, oops, 004, then that's going to tell me, oh, okay, well, that one's also used here. So later on down the road, if I need to make a change to a calc that's used somewhere else, then I will know immediately where else used. It does take a little bit more time doing this, and the other thing is that you wouldn't use this as actually a label, but you can come in here and like change out the alias of it. So just call it profit, right? So I don't have to worry about having the name like that, but it still makes it easy for you. And profit ratio. Right. So now it looks good. It does all the things that we need, but it makes it so I can actually find them simply. So hopefully that makes sense.
Thanks, Chris. I think that's great. And I do have, I'll go ahead and share my screen here. I do have a document that we use in our Boulder Insight trainings. We have a Tableau Creator training in our intermediate class where we teach this. It might even be our advanced class when we really talk about this naming convention and how it came about. And we had a client that we were up to what, Chris, over 300 calcs with them. And so knowing which parameters and which other calculations are embedded in it, having that reference calc is super helpful. So it's really about a simplicity of naming. It's easy to troubleshoot, especially when there's these embedded calculations. And so we're assuming that's what Marimi was asking about, was embedding calcs within other calcs. And it's easy to teach and train, and it's easy to show and find the total number of calcs in any data source. Now, ideally, Chris, when we're talking about best practices, do you think, I know we get this question all the time from our clients and in training, do you think it's best to do the calculations outside of Tableau in the original data set or in Tableau? What are your thoughts on that?
I think as I'm building, I kind of like to do them kind of here first, and then as you get the dashboard finished or whatever else, then you check its whole performance. And if it's slow, then you can't move those to the database. But the reason why I like to have them in Tableau is just because you can be actually more actually nimble. So if you need to change something or make an adjustment, you can do it right there. But obviously, after it's done and everything's in production, then you might want to move like some of those to the database to make it faster.
I think that's such a great practice, Chris, and thanks for answering that. Let me go ahead and bring in our next set of questions. We're going to stay with this calculation theme for a little bit because we got questions submitted that were really about calculated fields, calculations, table calcs, and things too. So Yana, that we have out of Alabama, one of our dear friends from our community here, she had a question around this compute using specific dimensions in table calculations and just how do those work? So and what difference does the order make? So how does compute using dimensions and table calcs work, and what difference does the order make, Chris? That will
Gotcha. Yeah, I can show. Let me just think for a second on that one. All right, I'll share my screen again. And so that one, so it does actually matter for sure. And I'll give you a good kind of example here. Let's say that I got let's just use we'll say state. Actually, I don't want to do that because that's going to put a map on there. I'll just put state and region. We'll just do those for now, and we'll just say sales. Okay, so if I change this to be a to be like a percent of actually total, so that's going to give me these actually numbers, right? And I can look at what it's doing. So if I edit the table calculation, right now, this is going actually table down. Okay. Well, if I wanted it, so right now, if I take out region, I'm not gonna change anything. It's gonna be all the exact same numbers. Nothing's gonna change. Let me put that back. Actually, I'll put region over here. So region's still there, but it doesn't really matter because it's going table down. And since right now I don't even have a pane, that's gonna change it to make like each one of these like a pane. Well, but what I think she was asking for is really this model, whereas if I have it by region and not by state, it's going to say, well, this actually region is 100%. But if I add region and state, then it's going to give me that your percentage. Well, it should have. Which one? That doesn't like that. That adds up. It should have given me. Oh, here we go. Deepest. I have to do this. No, it's not right. Well, shouldn't that have given me a total by the state? I mean, by the region? Heather?
It seems to be Chris calculating the entire table down that I'm seeing rather
Yes,
than
so
by region.
well,
It's
that
doing table down.
yeah. So there's actually pane down. I would expected it to do. Oh, maybe I didn't do this. We tried this way. Try just stay there.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Okay. So since I have region on here, then I want to do it by just by state. If I didn't have region on my view, say I just hadn't actually detail, then that's still gonna do the same thing. That still gives me the same number, didn't it? Let's see, 31 for Florida. Where was Florida at? Didn't Florida go in there as a highlight? 31. Why do these change? They shouldn't change. They should stay the ones I have, but they didn't for some reason. Well, anyway, the whole point is to be able to use these. Let me see, I can do it this way. I want to try something. I want to try region and state. So that gives me table down. That doesn't work. So anyway, the whole point is that you have to combine these things to tell it what it's doing. For the most part, especially if you don't have the other things showing, you're going to want to actually choose really these all. That's what you're going to want to do. And then I could probably check this with analysis totals. Let's do column totals. No, I did the wrong one. Totals row. Oh, neither one of them work. I thought it would give me like 100% there to show me that. Maybe subtotals. There we go. There we go. So that'll give you the total of that column, so you know it's right. So if I do this, then really what we're doing is 28% is in the region, 27 is in this region, and kind of so on. But then these are actually table actually down, versus this is actually pane down. Does that make sense? Was the person asked a question?
So. Yeah, Yana is not here right now, so I think that will be helpful. Let me pull up something too. This is sometimes a nice way to kind of understand the key to table calcs. The nice thing about a table calc. So if we're talking about here, I'll share my screen. If we're talking about the different types of calculations in Tableau, you have calculated fields, which is what Chris was showing when he was first doing the naming conventions and showed sum of sales, sum of profit, and then the profit ratio, which is sum of sales divided by profit. So that's a field of data that's being created. It's creating a new column of data. You also have, beyond calculated fields, you have LOD expressions, which are a type of calculated field, and then you have table calcs. And then you also have things like totals that are another feature built in. So table calculations take place on a measure, typically in the view. And you'll notice if I zoom in here, there's going to be this little icon that's a triangle that shows up when you do a table calc. So the key to understanding table calcs, it really comes down to scope and direction. And if you change that scope and direction, you literally change the question that you're answering and asking. And so one way to think about it when you're doing these things, whether it's a specific dimension, or if you're, so this is an example with a specific dimension, is how you can actually say your table calculation in a sentence. And so the way that it works is anything that is unchecked is how you would start. So you would say for each category and subcategory, compute the, so it goes up to the calculation type. So once you create that table calc, you'd right click and say edit table calc in your view, and then you get to this view to see the calculation. And sorry for those pop-ups that keep showing up. Then you're saying for each unchecked item, for each category and subcategory, compute the percent of total by whatever's checked, the year of order date. So in this case, if Chris would have built it out with the sales category, subcategory, and we have year in this view, this is how you'd be able to see that. So having this calculation in one sentence for table calcs was super helpful for me. This is something that that is known in the Tableau community, and this is an article about that as well, if you're interested in it. So let me put that screenshot in here as well in case. That would be helpful for you all to think about table calcs in that way. That's the key. The nice thing about table calcs is it's a feature, it's built into Tableau. You can do multiple table calcs anytime that you'd like. It's just being able to understand those table calculations. So again, you could go into sum of sales, go to quick table calcs, and these are the ones that are available based on the fields that I have in the view. Depending on what other fields you have, year-to-date total, year-to-date growth, those sort of things would also be available to you when you're creating a table calc. But the key is you have to have a measure in the view to do that, because it will lock in that scope and direction for you. Even in advanced classes, I teach that you come from doing it from the pill rather than writing it from scratch. So great question, Yana. And then Chris, going down the path a little bit more, I'm trying to look at who is on the call. And maybe we jump to one of the questions that are there. I think we'll come back to this one. We'll talk a little bit about functions and formulas. We're going to get into extracting data dashboard templates, but because we're not exactly sure of Nadia's question, I think she's not on the call right now. We may come back to this one because we had questions on if she meant how do you do the extract in Tableau once you're connected to a query in SQL Server, or if she wants to do the extract outside of Tableau. And so we had some questions for her around that, but we will get more into some of the functions, formulas, and things too. We'll come back to that when we talk about best practices. So I do think, let me see if we have Heba here as well. Oh, okay, yeah, let me jump into this one because I know it will get into Martin's question that he had as well as we start coming into this. So I'm going to go ahead and take this next question. This is from Heba. And Heba saying she's always wanted, I've always wanted to know, wanted to learn more about charts that could be made from joining two or more basic charts together. And so I have a couple things that I thought we could discuss with that question. So let me just open this up. So there are chart types. Let me just clear this. There are different chart types in Tableau that are called dual axes. So you can create dashboards that have multiple charts that are in a dashboard. That's a way to have different views, different charts all within the dashboard. So for those of you that are new to Tableau, the way Tableau works is that you always start, let me actually zoom in here. You always start with a data source. You have to connect to data. And then from there, you can create worksheets that are connected to the data source. It's broken down by dimensions and measures. And then from there, you can create dashboards from the worksheets that are connected to the data. And then you can also create stories, which are kind of like the PowerPoint and Tableau that are made up of dashboards and worksheets connected to the data. So what's that?
Boo stories.
Boo stories. Chris hates stories. That's another story for another day. We don't use stories very often, but we're a big fan of dashboards and worksheets. And so one of the things that we see that's a big mistake with new users is they try to make everything happen in the one worksheet. So you'll start to see people take Excel spreadsheets and try to put every single column in and make a bunch of crosstabs and make it do a whole lot of things. But a best practice, if you do want to have multiple charts in one, is to do something that's called a dual axis chart. And I'll show you a couple ways to do some dual axis charts. So let's say that we just want to take a look, and I'm just connected to all I've done is go in here and connect to the sample Superstore data that comes out of the package. I just click on that Tableau Sparkle to get me back. So that's the data that I'm connected to. I've opened up a worksheet and I'm just connecting to it the way that Tableau has it built out. So I'm going to bring my category and subcategory onto columns. And this is built as a hierarchy. Oops, sorry, hit the wrong key there. This is a hierarchy. So I actually don't have to drag both of them up. I can click on that plus, which means depending on where you grab the field, anything below that will show on the plus and minus when you go down. And then I'm going to say, let's look at our sales. So if I'm looking at category and subcategory, I can see my sales, but maybe the question I have is, what is our profit compared to our sales as well? So what I can do is I can take profit into the view. And let me just ask the question here. How many of you have actually ever created dual axis charts? Give me a raised hand or a one if you've ever done them. If you've not, that's totally fine. You can put a two or not raise your hand either way. Okay, so a couple. Fernando looks like he has a few folks. Yeah, just a couple. Okay, great. So hopefully this is helpful. So if you want to combine charts, you can, let's say I want two bar charts. I want the same type of chart. You can do something that's not a dual axis chart. It's called a shared axis where I can bring profit right on top of wherever my measure is. So you'll notice when I bring this into the view, you're going to see two rulers that are there. It's kind of like a little hockey check. It's saying, scoot over, let me in. If I do that, this will give me two bars. And I can actually, say, oh, maybe I want to color my bars a different color. And I can take my measure names, drag that onto color. That would stack those bars for me if I want. If I want to keep them in the same view, I can make a copy by hitting Control and dragging that onto color, and that would color these separately. So this is if you want to have the same type of chart, you can do what's called a shared axis. In this case, that's not what we were asked to do. Heba wanted to know, how can I do two different chart types and combine them into one? So to do that, that's where you want to do a dual axis. So there's two ways to do the dual axis. One is to drag it to the far right of wherever your measure is. So if my measure, if I would swap these two, if my measure was on top, I'd be bringing it to the opposite axes. So I would take my profit to the top up here. If I swap my axes, and I'm just using this little swap icon right here to swap the axes, I could bring this to the far right of the view again, opposite axis of where your other measure is. So I'm using more than one measure in the view here now. So when I drop that, you'll notice Tableau does some crazy things. It changes everything to a circle. You start to get panicked that you've done something wrong. You haven't. You're going to notice what this also has done is taking the sum of sales and sum of profit, and it's made it into one big green pill with a line between them. This is how you know you have a dual axis chart. The other thing that happens is you now have 3 marks card, one for all of the marks, another one for sales, and I'll just do this one in green, and another one for profit. So what you can do is go into those individual marks cards and you can change the type of chart that you have. So if I go into sales here, I can click from automatic, and let's say that I want this to be a bar. So now I've gotten what the question was asked, like, can I do more than one chart in here? Absolutely. We have sales here and we have profit, but you'll notice it would be very strange if your profit was more than your sales. I don't know how that is possible to do that. So there's one more step that you need to take, and we can say, let's leave these as circles. I like where they're landing, and you can see that that's nice and clear. We may say, we don't want to make the bars so bright. We want to use bright colors for things that you want to alarm people to. So maybe we'll, oops, I'm in the wrong one. Let me go here, sorry. And I will make the bar gray there. Oh, my bad. Let me make this color. We'll do sales in blue and profit in gray, let's say, when we start looking at it. And so, yep, I've got my sales and my profit there, but there's one last step that I need to take, and it's to right click on the far axis and say synchronize axes. And actually it's changed now that you could right click on either axes and be able to show these. So now you can see profitability should not be higher than your sales. And you're even seeing that we're losing profit on tables. So we could create a calculation. We could even have something that is alarming it. So if we could pull something else on color for a calc to say if it's below 0, make it red or make it orange or something to stand out. But this is one way to do a chart. This is called a dual axis chart. And again, I took this second measure and drag it to the far right. I could literally take the second measure, drag it to the far right in the columns or rows. Then you can see each of those, and I can change this one to a circle this way. Then you take the step to click the drop down and make that a dual axis here. And then you still synchronize. So it's an extra step, but sometimes when I'm teaching, people prefer to see it that way, where you bring it to the columns or the rows, so you can tell the chart types that you have going on there before you do the dual axis. So that's one way. And then I know we had another question Embedding sheets and charts, Fernando, we're going to get to that one in this, and then using the map features that Martin had. So let me talk about another map feature and another map type that we can do that's called a dual axis map. So let me pause. Any questions on this first chart type? And this could be any chart. It doesn't have to be a circle. We could make this a line. You could change these to any other chart type that makes sense. I think the circle is the cleanest way of seeing it. But any questions on the dual axis chart here that we did? All right, great. Okay, so let me take another chart type. So this is kind of combining three of the questions that we had today. So what I can do is let's make a map. So to make a map, what you need in Tableau is, you'll notice there's little icons next to country, region, state, province, city, state, postal code. You have to have a field that has a geographic role assigned to it. So if I go down to geographic role, these are all of the geographic roles that are built in from Tableau out of the box. You'll also notice when I scroll down into my data pane, you'll notice that latitude and longitude, now that I have anything that has a geographic role, will show up italicized. Does anybody know why things are italicized in Tableau and your dimensions are measures? You can't make it do that. It automatically does that. Why are these italicized? Put it in.
I know.
Go ahead, Chris, you know?
Yeah, I do. Because there are fields that are actually generated by Tableau.
Yeah, that's right. So, and Amber's saying no clue, but I've always wanted to know. Yeah, and when you see these in italics, you're always going to have measure values and measure names. That's a whole nother story, and we can talk about them a bit as well. And we actually had measure names and measure values, as you'll note, that just automatically showed up when we were doing this. And you'll see that measure names I drug to color. So when I was dragging that over, that is automatically generated in order for you to be able to do a dual axis chart. So measure names, measure values show up, and latitude and longitude often show up as well if you have a geographic role. So let me go ahead and try to build out the geographic role. So let's go ahead to build a map. You have a couple ways. You can go to show me and you can choose one of the map options. So that's one way to do it. Or you can grab one of the geographic roles. Remember, this is a hierarchy. We have that hierarchy icon, the way that this was built in Tableau. So we can actually drag that to the view. That will automatically bring up the show me icon, or to detail. So three ways that you can do a map. For this one, you notice we've got the US and Canada in this data set. So let's say we want to break this out into more information. So sticking with the sales and profit, since we're using Superstore sales, let's say that we want to look at profit, and I'll bring profit onto color here onto my marks card. When I do that, you'll start to see, okay, I can see if I'm profitable by each of my state, by my countries, but I want to get down into more detail. So I can actually start to hit on my hierarchy and get to region. And if I go further, I can get to state. And I can also see the provinces in Canada. And for this case, we could say, for country and region, I actually only want to focus on the United States. So I could, get rid of those colors if I want to, and zoom in a little bit more, however I'd like in this too. So you've got options on how you might want to go about looking at the data. But for ease of teaching and showing this today, let's go ahead and leave it this way. So right now, I'm leveraging my map. I've got this longitude and latitude. Automatically, when I drug country and region in and started drilling down, those automatically went to columns and rows. I didn't do that at all. Because those fields are generated, it allows you to make a map. All a map is essentially a scatter plot that's mapped on a background. That's all that it is. So let's say that we want to make this a dual axis map. What we can do is hit Control or Command if you're on a Mac. Make this into two different maps that you have here. You'll notice I have that same thing that was happening here, where I have a marks card for all, one for latitude and another one for latitude. And for this one, let's go ahead and let's remove that profit, and let's bring sales onto size instead. And now we can see the sales for each of the states. What we can do now is make this a dual axis chart. Same way I did before is you click on the drop down of the far right one. You click on dual axis, that pulls that chart on top of the other one. And now you can start to see your sales in addition to whether you were profitable in the background. There are other options in mapping that you can always go back and look at background maps. We can change them to normal and dark and street, that you can change what the backgrounds look like with mapping in Tableau. I can change that view by just going into map at the top in your background maps. You can also add streets and things into the view, but one of the things you want to be really careful about is that you don't want the background to distract from it. So maybe we want to go back and keep it dark. Other things to keep in mind for maps, this is a little hard to see. Maybe we want to go into the color and we actually want to put a border around this so that pops a little more, maybe a black border. And I could even drill down further into having sales by city in here as well. And you can start to see that. And I may want to make my sizes bigger too. So that gets you into the mapping. There's a whole lot more in mapping. You can do other images if you want to map into a store or a baseball field or anything. You can import some of your geocoding. You can edit locations if you need to. And then if you start getting into other map options, you can choose just how much control you give. If you want to have a scale that's showing how you want to allow people to navigate the map that's on there. And then you do also, if I go into background layers with maps, you do also have the ability, if I didn't want to have it colored by profit, you can actually go into data. Oh, it's cutting off here we go. Try. You can also get into census data and things as well. For some reason, it's kind of cutting off my view of the census data when you get into there today, but there is a data that allows you to have census data. Yeah, I'm not sure why that's getting cut off. So I apologize for that, but that is giving you income and populations and things that you can do a color in the background rather than by profit, by census data as well. And you have more control under the background layers as well as to, if you want to show coastlines and streets and things like that. And depending on how zoomed in you are, will help just how close the details are showing with it. So just some cool options that are in there. Martin, did that answer your question on mapping? Do you have more questions on mapping that we might be able to cover today? You're welcome to come off mute or put it in the chat if you'd like as well. Looks good. Okay, great. So if you start getting into deeper questions, we can go deeper into maps, but I thought this was a great way to combine both questions that had come into the view. So Chris, let's go back to, we're doing great on time. Russ had a question, anything related to research, also general best practices, especially when trying to clean up messy and complicated data. And Russ, I know we have you on the phone, on the Zoom here on the call. Is there anything specific you want to add to this since you're here, or would you like us to answer the question as is?
Nothing specific, just more of a topic of general interest. I'm always having to clean up a bunch of very messy academic data, especially between years when things aren't necessarily standardized from year to year. I have to do the cleanup and connecting and then try to aggregate results across multiple academic years.
Yeah, it's definitely something that happens as data changes. I would just say that's kind of part of the process. I'll show you a couple things on that. Let me pull up a browser here real quick. Here we go. Oh, I got a lot of things open here. Ooh. There we go. Okay, it's a little bit more clean. All right, let me share my screen. And so one of the things, where's my Zoom? There it is. Okay. Share and desktop 3. Here we go. So one of the things that that we often do is I'll just show you this template here. This is a I'll show you this one. It's fine. Is really is kind of building some sort of a process. You probably want to do it once and do it right. So for every year, it's going to be different probably, but it's just kind of a mapping exercise. So typically when we're thinking about building out these different charts, like if you have different data sets, like in this example, once it renders, this is for kind of example of like having like HR data, but you may have different years. Well, if it's different years and different formats, you want to put them in some sort of a staging table. Then you create some sort of ETL. And there's tons of products out there. Like you can use like Tableau Prep. You can use Alteryx. You can write your own script in Python. But really, what you're trying to do is turn tables or different data sets that are not related or are dirty. Maybe they didn't have the right number of years, or the date format was off in 1 year. Those are often things that happen. So you just put it in raw, and then you use your ETL process to change it to whatever you want. Then you make that into a production table that all is actually lined up. But what I'd say is it has to be a process that you have to save and just do actually over and over. Does that make sense? Does that help you at all?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we even have out here, we have a couple Tableau public. Yeah. So for like academic data, we've been doing a lot of like fact books and stuff lately. So I've got one out here. I'll send you the link to it that we kind of started. It's under my profile. Oops, it changed on me. There we go. I'll send the link once I get this up. But come on, there we go. Man, my profile, here we go. So like this one right here is one kind of a sample one that we built. And this is just off some sample data we have, but just thinking about, you have your applications coming in, you have your admissions, and you have your enrollment. And then your admission rate would be the admissions divided by the applications, so 85%, and then your yield rate would be your actual enrollment divided by your whole admissions, right? And then from here, this graph here just shows you the different years. So you can see your trending. You can click on different people, like the transfers or whatever, and it'll pivot on all that data to show you what's going on. Or if you wanted to look at just the actually rates and not the counts, because that's probably what's actually important. We use like Tableau's new like feature to change the order of the different sheets. So they have a new feature. I'll show it to you in a second, but that way you can basically have a dashboard on top of a dashboard, and you can just swap out the order. That's kind of handy. But I'll put this in the chat for you to look at. And there we go. There's that. So that's in the chat for you. The other thing, Heather, I just want to go back to the first question we talked about. One of the things that I think is a handy little thing. Like Heather was saying, this little triangle means that there's some calculation done. Let's say that, let's say that I don't want to do that. So say it's a calculation that I need to use multiple times. I can always take it and drag it over here. And when I do, you're going to see that it's going to name it calculation 1 for me. So if I call this one, percent of total, TAL, that's not spelled right, total, and then I'll throw a number on it just so I know where I'm at here, but we'll do 0, 1, 1, right? And then, so now what it's done for me is if I look, even though I kind of built it with Tableau, it actually wrote out that thing for me. So this is actually how it does that whole percent of total. But I can save that calculation just by actually dragging it off.
Yeah, okay. Chris, and it's awesome. The one thing I do want to pull out, it will hold that scope and direction, right? So if you need to change the scope and direction, you would have to go back and it's actually a new calculation if you change scope and direction. So it is holding that to be pane down. If you needed it to be table down, you wanted it, the percent of total for all of the regions rather than just the central region, then you would have to do a new calc in here and drag it over. But it is a super helpful shortcut to be able to have that you don't even have to know how to write it. Tableau does all those features, but if you do want to look behind the Wizard of Oz curtain, it's one of my favorite tricks. I love that you showed that today. I think that's really valuable. So, I just want to point out that scope and direction that we talked about will be held in that. One thing I realized, Chris, is I did not finish answering a question on the map. I wanted somebody had also asked about the viz within a tooltip. So let me go ahead and share my screen.
All right.
And we'll pull up that question. There we go. One of the questions we had was, how do you do a viz within a tooltip? And that was from Fernando, and Fernando's on the call as well. So I want to make sure we do that. I planned on showing that when I built out the map. So I made this simpler just to not have all of the cities, went back to that state view. It's our dual axis map. And the question that Fernando has was, how can you put something in the tooltip? It's called a viz within a tooltip. So it's pretty cool. What you do is you go to the marks card and you click on tooltip. And again, I'm on the marks card with the circle on it. I'm not on the filled map one. If I go to the marks card, oh, here he is, tooltips in my other screen. You'll notice it has my tooltips that are automatically generated. What you do is you go to the end of those and hit space twice. And then what you'll do is go into insert. And if you have a sheet that is created, you can insert that into it. It has to be within the same workbook. So I went ahead and created, let me do this first. I created a line chart that's just looking at looking at quarters over time. I could even break it down by month if I want over time. Let's go ahead and do month. So this is, these are your date parts. These are your date values. This is a date value, which is a timeline that is chronological timeline over time. If I do a date part, this would be taking all of my months, all of my Mays, all of my Januaries, all of my Februaries together and putting them into date parts. So grouping them by part, where this is a chronological timeline. So this date part, date value is something we could get into in another time too. But if I go in here, I go to my tooltip, I hit that return, I can then go into insert and go to sheets. And this is where you go to be able to find it. And I can just say insert the sheet for the line chart. When I do that, it will set the width and the height for you. You can go in and change those from 300 by 300, and you can change how it filters as well. I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and I'll show you what happens now. So if I hover over this circle, I can see here's my month line chart and how it's trending over time. And you can just hover and see this line chart that's in there. So really cool way to have another chart that shows up in your map. Again, you don't want too many combinations of charts into one, but this builds upon Maremi's question, Fernando's question, and Martin's question around how to do more than one chart in a view, but also to keep it so it's not overwhelming and causing what we call cognitive load that can overwhelm your end user. So kind of a cool way to put a viz within a tooltip. Any questions from that? And was that what you were hoping for, Fernando?
Yes, thank you, Heather. I was wondering about that, the fields, like if I wanted to isolate a certain month and I wanted that line chart to just show me that month, how would it trickle down into that chart within the viz?
Chris, thoughts on that?
Yeah.
I don't know how interactive you can make that.
Well,
Okay.
you wanted just to only show a certain month period?
Yes. So like
Yeah.
if there was a filter
Right.
on the
Yeah.
map one, for instance, like will it then trickle down into the viz filter? And if
Yeah,
so,
so
how do you
what you'd have to do for that, go ahead and do that, Heather. Drag like a filter on here.
For
Just
order date?
month. Yeah.
Yep.
Do
And which one do you want me to do, Chris? You think just a month?
like a month and the month and month and the month and month and month of the year, I think.
Okay. Yeah, there we go.
You probably wouldn't want the trend line. You probably want a number. Just pick one, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Okay, I'll just go.
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
we do a couple of those?
Perfect. All right. So that would be that. So now instead of it being in a sheet, you're gonna need to have a dashboard.
Yeah.
So put it on a dashboard. Pull your map, your line chart's fine, whatever. Let's just do a floating. So this is a key for floating right here.
Okay, yep.
And then, so you want them both to be floating. And then what I would do is I would send that line chart, or here, click on the line chart and show the filter. Yep. Okay, do as a drop down or something.
We'll do a drop
So
down.
now you drop down, perfect. And that's gonna be all crazy big. Just go in the layout and you change it to like 30 or something. No, that's fine. There you go. So what we'll do is we'll actually hide the line chart. So I would just click on that and go to layout. And then just change the X and Y to 0, 0, and then 1, 1 for the width and height. So you're basically gonna hide it in the corner. You're not gonna see it. But as long as it's here, then you can use that filter to actually control it. So now you only kind of see your map is the only thing you see. You can make that just bigger. And so now if you hover, you're gonna see just those 2 months in your line chart. But if you change the filter, then it's gonna change it. So if you select it all, like just do all, so you'll see it really quickly. So now that filter changed the line chart that's part of that dashboard. So it actually changed your like a viz and viz.
That's really cool, Chris. That's very slick.
Very cool, Chris. Thank you.
Sure.
I like how you hit it with that 0, 0 on the XY. I wouldn't have thought
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you still like. I mean, so most of our dashboards, we do it. We have a background anyway, so I would do that. I'd put it there, and then I would also kind of put it in the very back as well, because sometimes if you don't do that and you still when you print it out, you'll kind of see that little icon up there. It'll show you something. So if you put it behind a darker color, it'll be fine.
And I noticed you said to do 1, 1 for the width and height. Is that correct?
Yeah, because you can't actually do actually 0, 0. You got to pick at least one pixel.
Okay.
They won't let you
So
do.
here you can see when I'm in the layout, I just clicked on the line chart here, even though you can't quite find it up here yourself
Mhm.
to be able to see it. You can get to it through the item hierarchy, and then you can change those positions and things as well.
Yeah, or
the key is they have to be floating, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Can't
Yeah,
be tiled.
floating. Yeah, that's really the key. And so all of our whole dashboards that we build are always floating because it really helps to be able to layer things. I mean that and it's also faster. I know that Tableau defaults to tiled, but man, just having the control of like pixels to be able to lay things out neater is actually great.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I'm going to go back, Chris, to one of the questions that we had a little bit earlier. So Fernando, thanks for coming off mute and continuing to dive deeper into that. That got even more interesting. And I learned something new today about how to make that tooltip work with a filter. I had not thought through the solution like that. So it was a great question. So Nadia had a question around functions and formulas and dashboard templates. I know we can't quite answer her extracting data using a query from SQL Server, but Chris, maybe we could go back to this question for the next 5 or so minutes and just talk a little bit about dashboard templates perhaps, or even showing an extract in Tableau. We could show how an extract works there. As far as functions and formulas, if you pull up your original Twibix file, we can talk a little bit about the coloring conventions and things in Tableau, so orange is a field and purple is a parameter, those sorts of things. We could talk a little bit about that too if we want. So.
Which one do you want me to pull up? Which dashboard?
Just your first Twibix you were working on where you built out the profit ratio and profit and sales, sum of sales, sum of profit. We could look at that and talk about formulas and functions a bit.
Okay.
Unless there is a question I'm missing in chat from anybody else live here. So I'll take a look at chat too. I don't think I've missed anything.
Yeah, so as far as I don't understand the question about the extract from SQL Server. It's really the same for all things. So I don't have a SQL Server handy, but I do have a Snowflake that I can do. So it should be basically the same. Just click on whatever your data source is, and then you'll put in the URL, the username and password. I don't know why it's so slow, but it's probably the weather. Huh. Well, goodness gracious. Man, I don't know what is going on here. I feel like I'm being punked. Well, I pulled this one over. Let me see if I can do it faster on this one. Data, new data source.
And Chris, I realized we also did have a question
There we go.
from Omanigo. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Just asking about UI UX best practices too. So when we get into the Tableau templates, I think we'll be able to cover off on that as well.
All right. So as far as doing an extract, it's really the same. There's a couple different ways to do it. I'll just show you this. There we go. All right. So here we are in actually Snowflake. I got a Superstore data set out here. So same data set. I just put it up here just for us to have. So there's a couple different ways to do it. Guys, why is it so slow?
It's Tableau Live. That's why when it's live, you're going to have some. Never know what we're going to get when it's Tableau Live.
So I got these three tables. I have a choice of doing the whole relationship. That's what Tableau does by default. So if I wanted to join in the whole returns, I could do that. So the relationship, I'll just say what that is. So basically when Tableau builds the extract here, it's going to create one table for this one and one table for this one, and then it's going to join them on the fly. So as you're using it, it'll do the join kind of as you use it. That's handy if you have really big tables, and if they join together, they're going to make a really big table. So sometimes it's better to do it that way. For the most part, I don't like using those. So what I do is I will double click on this, and it takes you back into the old screen so you can do an actual join. So this join here is going to happen first. It's going and so if it was to build out a lot more rows, it would already be actually done. So anyway, so creating an extract, your first option is right here. You can just click the extract, and it's going to do it. I'm going to do it a different way instead. So I'm gonna connect live. So now we know it's live because we only see the single database. You can also right click on this and say extract data. Here you got some options that you don't get from the other screen. I could set an incremental refresh if I want it to refresh, the customer order on the date. That way, whenever I do the refresh on the Tableau server, it's only pulling in new dates. That can be handy. Or I can also say, hey, this is a large data set. I'm just starting to build it out. So just give me 5% of it. So we often do that when we're starting out building from a really large data set. We kind of chop it down to something smaller, build all of our calculations, get those working, and then we turn it back to the entire data set. And then that's going to tell us, okay, do we need to move those calculations from Tableau back to the database, or is it actually fine, right? But that's also another option. So, and then the last thing we would do is once we finish building everything, then we always want to click this hide unused fields button. That would make it so any columns that you're not using, it just gets rid of it, so it makes things faster and kind of smaller. So I'll just hit extract for now. And then you'll notice that it goes from one database to two. It'll tell you the date's going to change a little bit. So one database to two, and that's pretty much it. So
and Chris, one of the things you mentioned was hide unused fields. People get panicked when that happens, that you can't get them back. You can. You just have to go into the extract and turn that extract off, and then you can show unused fields and re-extract the data. So just know that is absolutely possible. If any field would have been hidden, you can get those hidden fields back. I know that panics people when I teach sometimes as well, that's easy to do.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and do that really quick. So I'll click extract data, hide unused fields, and you'll see everything's going to go away except for those three that I just pulled in. So it'd be like gone. So, but the beauty of it is actually they're actually not even there. So even if you do the show hidden fields, they're not really hidden. They're actually gone. But to get them back, all you have to do is go extract remove. That's going to remove the extract. Now my show hidden fields will show me everything that I had. So if I say, hey, I actually need this one, I want to pull it back in, I can use it now, and then I can do the same thing actually again. Hide unused fields and extract, and then I'll go from there. Oops. This is a stupid thing that Tableau does.
Because we're logged into our server, it's some new error that
Yeah.
happens that
Anyway.
has not been fixed yet. So Chris, we're getting at time, and I know we have a question about UI UX principles. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm just going to pull up a few slides. I know we don't have a whole lot of time to go too deep into this. So Nico, if you would like, I'll show you how you can get onto Chris's Calendly or onto mine, and we can spend a little time with you, or we can bring this up in the next session as well next month. But when we're talking about UX design and UI design, it really matters that we want to design with the science of really understanding user interfaces and user experiences based on human-centered design best principles. And so the anatomy of the dashboard really helps because it helps guide the people's eyes with it. It'll help with literacy, it will reduce development time. And there's really a science behind it. And so if you look at a website, we try to design our dashboards like a website based on the science that we see there, that you have navigation across the top and a data hero and filters that are kind of the left navigation and then other supporting data, that's the design patterns that are there. So knowing that we read left to right, we utilize that. So you get used to like people knowing your logo goes here, then your title, your parameter and navigation. You've got left rails. Sometimes you even have secondary data for ways to look at your data from left and right to be able to navigate data with dashboard actions. And then the main areas where your data hero and those pieces go. And then we try to use color as well with it. So what we do have is a website that's called Tableau Templates that I'd recommend checking out. We have an accelerator on there. There'll be more accelerators coming. That's if you work in the grants area at all. This is an accelerator that will help with that. We have templates that have 20 different dashboard layouts with layout containers that are in there that you can actually work with and build with. And then we have our skins that are just the background images that are in there. And then you can use floating containers on those images. So I really recommend checking out the Tableau template site and reaching out to us if you have more questions around that. And if we get to what I want to talk about, we have some things we're super excited about coming in February. We're actually going to be taking the courses that we offer to our clients for groups of our, staff from our clients, the schools that we work with that will do trainings for you all. We're actually opening up all 3 of our main training courses to the public. So stay tuned. There'll be more information coming about that, and that'll also be on our website. Under training that you would be able to get to the Boulder Insight training page, and you'll have ways that you can register for those. We're going to be offering them every month, twice a month, our Tableau Creator Fundamentals, our Intermediate, and our the BIG Way for any Tableau creators, and we'll be offering a discounted rate for students as well. So we're super excited about that, and we just want you all to stay in touch with us over the next month. If you have additional questions, you can add those to the to your registration when you register. And I think I also can get to a questions form. Yeah, there we go. Oh, that's the training info one. I'll have to try to get to a questions form for you too. But just please reach out to us. In between, we will be coming, we'll have the next session next month. You always can get to our Tableau Live from our website as well. And sign up for the next course. You'll see February 21st, same time at 1 p.m. Mountain Time when we'll be holding the next course, and you can actually register. We have all of the courses for this year scheduled out, so you're welcome to register for each of them. And just anytime you have a question, you can also go to our website and schedule some time with us using the Calendly. This gets you onto Chris's calendar. You can do a free project consultation. And if you have questions that can't wait till next month, that's a way to get to us as well. I too have a Calendly. It's not on the website. I'll make sure that when we send our follow-up email with the recording from this, that we'll put my Calendly in there too, because between Chris and I, you can usually hop on one of our calendars. I know both of them fill up pretty fast, but we love hearing from you. So thank you so much for kicking off the new year with so many great questions and such great participation. I hope you'll join us next month. Again, that it's going to be on February 21st at 1 p.m. Mountain, 3 p.m. Eastern. And we'd love to have you guys continue to grow your Tableau skills with us in 2024. So we'll see you next month. Take care, everybody.